We'll go to the Sound Off hotline and welcome in, cover the Big Ten and Notre Dame, and he's kind enough to join us here this morning. Good morning to you. I understand 2 feet of snow has kind of been in your way, other things on your mind, but Chris Poole from ESPN.com, give him the proper introduction.
Thank
JT.
you.
Come on. Hey, let's get to it, buddy. Big Ten, I thought they had a nice splash onto the scene. We know the typical Ohio State was up there, but I think surprising to see outside of the Big Ten, you covered Notre Dame. Talk about the job that they were able to do on the recruiting scene yesterday.
I think it's an underrated class. I thought it could have been ranked higher. It all depends on how you look at a class. Everyone's going to look at the 4- and 5-star kids, and that's basically where you get your ranking. But I look further down the line, and I see guys like Chase Hounshell from Ohio and another guy, Brad Carrico from Ohio, who are 3-star guys that I think are down the line going to be great tackles. And I apologize for my phone ringing. But they also signed, arguably the best defensive line class in the country, and they also added a ton of athleticism with Everett Golson and Matthias Farley and wide receiver DeVaris Daniels, who played in the Under Armour All-American game. So I thought they filled a lot of need, which the need was defensive line. I thought was a great class.
Were you surprised with this class and Notre Dame was able to pull in there, Coach Kelly and his coaching staff? Because for a while there, maybe they were off the map, but I consider this, a huge kind of, exploding onto the scene, back and better than ever, if you will, here for Notre Dame.
No, I really, like everyone says, it might say that Notre Dame is off the map. I don't think Notre Dame could ever be off the map. Same with Michigan. They were down with Rich Rod, but I don't think Michigan could ever be irrelevant in recruiting. So, no, I wasn't surprised by what they did. And, again, it's a great class, and they filled a great need at defensive line, and I know they're excited for spring ball to start.
Well, you talk about Michigan there. Rich Rodriguez out. Now they got a new regime coming in. How did they fare yesterday in recruiting?
Again, I thought another underrated class. I know one service had them ranked higher than we had them at ESPN. They brought in Chris Bryant, a big offensive lineman that everybody wanted from Chicago. They met a lot of need. They got a really good defensive back from Maryland and Blake Countess, who I had a chance to see earlier in the year, and I just thought the world of. So, at a short time to put things together, I thought that Coach did, a phenomenal job of, circling the wagons and getting a good class in.
Talking with Chris Poole here on the Sports Sound Off Show. He covers the Big Ten and Notre Dame football as far as recruiting is concerned, and I know you were busy yesterday. Nebraska, another busy team, new onto the scene here in the Big Ten, but they came on, made a big splash. I think a lot of people in the Big Ten, excited in a way for Nebraska to be here, but in another way, look, they're going to start stealing a lot of these recruits. And, look, Ohio State may be right above there. It doesn't have to be too concerned because they are Ohio State, but everybody else below, take a number because the Cornhuskers are here, and, well, they had a great recruiting class.
Most definitely, and I think if you move ahead to the classes of 2012 and 2013, recruiting every year seems like it gets going, earlier and earlier, and schools start looking at kids down the line these days. A lot of the kids in the Midwest that I'm talking to, the juniors and sophomores, are all listed Nebraska as a favorite. They signed a kid out of Springfield, Illinois, Ryan Klatchko, and I talked to Ryan, and he said, his parents were talking to him, and the best thing that they could think of is that the furthest they'll have to drive for a game in the Big Ten is a home game to Lincoln. So, I mean, they're really loving it. They signed a great class. They got a tremendous running back in Aaron Green. But I think everyone needs to keep an eye on defensive lineman Todd Pete. I think he can make an instant impact, a defensive tackle or defensive end. He's really quick. He's explosive, doesn't stay blocked. And keep an eye on Jamal Turner. He's a great athlete, played quarterback in high school. Watch him on film, and he's got like Charlie Ward-type quarterback skills. He can throw it, and when he takes off, he's just electric. And they signed another quarterback in the class, Bubba Starling from Gardner Edgerton in Kansas. And Bubba, I saw in person this year, another guy who, first of all, they say is a first-round draft choice in baseball, but also legit, 6'5", 230 pounds, can run like the wind, and, could maybe move to tight end. So they got two quarterbacks. Maybe if one of them doesn't work out, they move to a different position. They don't lose a scholarship. But, you look down the line, they find a great group of offensive linemen and typical Nebraska, road grader, tractor pull offensive linemen. So great job there by Coach Pelini.
We've been talking a lot on the show here this morning. The two schools that jumped out to me, USC and Florida State. Lane Kiffin, with the sanctions there in that program. But yet here he is able to do some of his best work in recruiting. And then Jimbo Fisher there at Florida State, still in the transition phases of taking over for a legend in Bobby Bowden. Talk about those two guys in particular, Fisher and Kiffin, and the job they were able to do.
I think, Lane, even when he was assistant at USC, was a great recruiter. He recruited the Chicago area for USC, and he was a great recruiter then. So when he went to Tennessee, I wasn't surprised that he was a great recruiter. And obviously, USC has a lot to sell on its own with tradition, and I'm not surprised with the staff he put together that he's able to put the class together that he did. As far as Florida State is concerned, our senior director of scouting, Jeremy Crabtree, said yesterday on ESPN that, Florida State started quick, and they ended just as fast. They got the commitment from defensive end Tim Jernigan yesterday. They signed the nation's top tight end in Nick O'Leary, who is Jack Nicklaus's grandson. Safety Carlos Williams is a top safety in the country, and if anybody watched the Under Armour game, he laid out a wide receiver on a pass play. Everyone's talking about James Wilder as the running back of the future there. I think that's something to keep an eye on because I look at Devonta Freeman, a running back out of Miami, and I think he's the running back of the future there for Florida State. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Really liked what Clemson did yesterday. I mean, Clemson was the biggest surprise of the day. They got the number one, outside linebacker and inside linebacker and Tony Stewart and Stephon Anthony. And now what does Jadeveon Clowney do? He announces on Valentine's Day, February 14th. It was between South Carolina and Alabama. But, you got Clemson right down the road who signs the top two linebackers in the country. Maybe they signed the number one defensive end and player in the country in Clowney, and you got a great defense in the future. So that's something to keep an eye on. And I think Mark Richt did a great job at Georgia this year. He really, really needed that class.
Yeah, a couple of schools who had down years, Clemson and Georgia. Clemson always been in the discussion, but never really deliver through the hype. And then Georgia there, definitely a down year for them. I was impressed with the job that they did. Where does Clowney go in your mind? A physical force he's going to be in the defensive end position. I've had a chance to actually see him as his high school is about 30 minutes from the studio, so I've had a chance to see him on Friday nights. Now he moves on to Saturdays and plays at the next level. I understand it's Clemson or South Carolina, but when you look at a guy like Nick Saban, Chris, he kind of, he knows what he wants and he goes to go out there and get it. How is Clowney not with Alabama yet, and can Saban make the final push to get him there?
Well, our experts at ESPN, Jamie Newberg, Tom Luganbill, Craig Hoppert, those guys have their fingers on the pulse with Jadeveon, and they are saying South Carolina is a team to beat. As far as Nick is concerned, I looked at what happened yesterday with Cyrus. Quantijo, the offensive lineman from Maryland, and he committed to Auburn, and then he didn't sign. And I love what Nick said online or on TV yesterday at ESPN. He said, everyone wants to promise these kids early playing time, but the truth of the matter is they have to come in and develop. So I don't know if Cyrus was looking at depth charts or if he was going with his gut or not, but obviously Nick Saban would be a great coach to play for, and I'm sure that they'll continue to do a great job of recruiting Cyrus and Sal Sunseri, the linebackers coach there, assistant head coach, is one of the best recruiters in the country. So those are a couple of storylines to keep an eye on in Clowney and Quantijo.
We definitely got our finger on the pulse because Clowney will make his decision on Valentine's Day. He is Chris Poole from ESPN.com, covers the Big Ten and Notre Dame. Check out his work there, ESPN.com. Again, Chris Poole, thanks so much for getting in with us. I know you had a lot of obstacles with the weather, but you were kind enough to join us here on the Sports Town Show this morning. Thanks again for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day, buddy.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right. Thank you, Chris Poole from ESPN.com.